Nanalo ng Family Feud ng Team Bell ng 200,000 pesos. Upload natin ang 5 parts bukas tuwing Sabado. Family Feud.
5:40 p.m.
Sa susunod taong ito sa 2026, kaya hindi kailangang upload ating 5 pods sa Family Feud. Makuha ng 200,000 pesos at 230,000 pesos ang mapalunan ninyo.
Family Feud, 5:40 p.m.
Welcome to my episode that is called
Nagmamano pa.
That's okay.
at 4 p.m. today.
This is DW News. These are our top stories. Israel and Hamas have approved the first phase of a ceasefire and hostage deal for Gaza. It is due to come into effect on Saturday. The agreement is based on a framework laid out by U.S. President Donald Trump. The plan calls for the hostages being held in Gaza to be released within 72 hours of the start of the ceasefire. Israel will then free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. A U.S. federal judge has blocked the deployment of National Guard troops in the Chicago area for at least 2 weeks. The judge said that there is no credible evidence that a danger of rebellion is brewing. President Trump has said that troops will be deployed to several cities to rein in crime and violent protesters. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te has announced a new advanced all-domain air defense system dubbed Taiwan Dome to better defend against China. Taipei has been ramping up military spending in the face of increasing military and political pressure from Beijing, which views the island as its own territory. You're watching DW News from Berlin. More on the website, dw.com.
U.S. at 6:46 p.m. today.
Hi, I'm Kim Vanell. It's Friday, October 10th. Today, a ceasefire in Gaza is set to begin as Israel signs off on the deal. US troops prepare to deploy to the region as part of a security task force. New York Attorney General Letitia James is indicted. And Russia's industry titans go to a 4-day work week as sanctions and the war in Ukraine continue to bite. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. A ceasefire in Gaza will begin within 24 hours after the Israeli government ratified a deal to withdraw its troops in exchange for the release of hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking alongside White House advisor Jared Kushner and US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff before the vote.
And I want to thank you on their behalf as well, on behalf of the people of this country.
Netanyahu had this to say.
We know that it's for the benefit of Israel and the United States, for the benefit of decent people everywhere. It's for the benefit of these families who will finally get to be with their loved ones.
Netanyahu thanked US President Donald Trump for his efforts in brokering the deal, with Trump now heralding this as a permanent end to the war.
I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East.
Trump says the hostages in Gaza will be released on Monday or Tuesday, but he notes that some of the hostages' remains may be hard to recover. Trump himself will head to Egypt on Sunday for a signing ceremony and has been invited to speak in the Israeli Knesset. It would be the first time the US leaders onto trucks. And in Gaza itself, celebrations are continuing. Emergency workers in Gaza City blasting their sirens, excited over the prospect the millions of people displaced may soon be able to return home. In Israel, meanwhile, Noah Eliakim Raz head of internal medicine at Rambin Medical Center, says they're preparing to receive hostages.
We think of extreme situations, of prolonged captivity underground, and we refresh everything, but we're really ready for every scenario.
The UN has already ramped up plans to send fleets of trucks to carry food and medical aid into Gaza.
We will aim to increase the pipeline of supplies to hundreds of trucks every day.
That's UN Aid Chief Tom Fletcher. He says shelter and cash for basic food needs will also be provided. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for red tape to be removed to ensure safety and access for humanitarian workers. In the wake of the ceasefire deal, a huge field was ploughed with the words "Nobel for Trump." But it wasn't enough. Here's Reuters World News producer Carmel Crimmins.
No gold medal for President Trump, Kim, despite lots of not-so-subtle hints.
You should be able to get the Nobel. I said I stopped 7 wars.
Instead, the prize went to Maria Corina Machado. She's a Venezuelan politician and was barred from running in the 2024 presidential election. She's the country's most popular opposition figure. Over in Oslo, I asked Gladys Fouché if Norway was bracing itself for any potential blowback after Trump failed to win.
This level of attention this year is beyond anything that's happened in previous recent elections.
The Justice Department says the case stems from a mortgage application for a Virginia home where James allegedly misrepresented the property as her primary residence. James, a Democrat and longtime critic of Donald Trump, called the charges baseless.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system.
She's due in court later this month. A powerful 7.6 magnitude earthquake has struck offshore in the southern Philippines. Tsunami warnings have been issued and coastal residents urged to evacuate to higher ground. The quake hit near Manay town in Mindanao at a depth of just 10 kilometers. Authorities are warning of possible damage and aftershocks. You can read more on this developing story on Reuters.com or the Reuters app. President Trump's plan to send National Guard troops into U.S. cities is facing mounting legal resistance. A judge in Chicago temporarily blocked the Illinois deployment, saying it would add fuel to the fire. A similar block has already been handed down in Portland, Oregon, although that one looks set to be set aside in a federal appeals court. These cases could reshape how and where the president can use military force. Unemployment claims in the US ticked up last week, and economists think the government shutdown may be to blame. Contractors are starting to file for benefits, and with official data paused, estimates are filling the gap. Claims rose to around 235,000, still low overall, but likely to stay elevated until Washington reopens. And in Russia, some of the biggest industrial companies are putting employees on furlough or cutting staff. As the war economy slows, domestic demand stalls, and export markets.
Group of factors. So one, obviously sanctions. Two, sometimes like export markets. And they're doing this because ultimately they don't want to have to sack large amounts of people, but they're facing a large amount of costs and reducing revenues because of export markets, because of sanctions, because of the slowdown in the economy, slowdown domestic demand.
Guy says Putin disagrees that the economy is approaching stagnation.
He has said that the economy is actually probably through the worst, but of course for the Kremlin, this is actually quite a sensitive topic because you do not want large amounts of workers kicked out of their jobs. And so the companies in a way are in between this. They will be under pressure from the Kremlin not to sack large numbers of people. And there's a geography as well in the former Soviet Union. There are a lot of these towns where these companies are the only employer. What essentially would happen if push really came to shove is that the Kremlin would essentially pour money into some of these industries because they're just too important.
And for today's recommended read, a recommended listen. Christopher Walljasper takes you on assignment to Kalundborg, Denmark, home to Novo Nordisk's production empire, and the location where the key ingredient in weight loss drugs Wegovy and Ozempic is made. Tune in on Saturday to find out how this Danish town, nicknamed Novo Town, is bracing for job cuts as the town's fate continues to depend on the pharma giant. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.
That's it for your news updates. To see more stories, open Google News.